there's enough out there now where you've watched something this week or you've read something this week. And like, I feel like that's how you build, I don't want to say necessarily friendships, but that's how you build relationships in the industry. And people do, it might take a year or two or something, but then, I mean, I'll be honest, that Flight Attendant came from someone, I had asked someone to give, I had a spec going out. I asked someone if they would mind before it went out, like reading it. And if anything stood out to them that like they could call attention to as like, oh, there's a plot hole here, if they would let me know. They read it, gave me very nice feedback and very honest feedback. They liked it. And a year and a half later, they were staffing Flight Attendant and remembered me and remember that script. And that's how I was able to break out of kids TV. And that kind of changed everything for me. Yeah. So it came from, and it was a year and a half later. And it came from someone who I had a professional relationship with, who knew I wasn't coming to them for like an agent, to give this to their agent. And 18 months later, it, remembered me and remembered that script. And I think I hope to do the same thing if I have the opportunity. And I feel like those types of relationships are what get, whether it's acting or writing, or I'm sure being a DP or whatever, like those are the things where people want to help each other when they have those types of connections.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's Hollywood in a nutshell, right?
I mean, honestly, it was very much my Hollywood moment.
That is the coolest. I mean, that.
One of my best friends is a very similar story where it was just a friend of ours that liked having him around and liked his sense of humor, had a show on Fox for a couple of years, and we're finally opening up staffing, and just like on a ski lift on a random ski trip we were all on, was like, hey, do you have a sample?
That's it.
Yeah, that was it.
But they had the sample, right?
They had the sample.
Going back to our previous conversation, is like, if you are involved in these conversations, if you are at a point in your career where actors often ask me about networking, and I'm like, well, how's home base? Like, right? Like, what's your craft? How's your materials? Like, before we go searching for people to send it to, because that's what people, once they get on your side, they'll say, like, send me your stuff, whether you're a writer, whether you're an actor. And if you don't have stuff to send, that's good. You don't want to be in those conversations yet.
Yes. And I also think, to that point, and I'm sure this applies with acting as well, but like, not to rush. And like, when nothing drives me crazier than when someone sends me a script that I've agreed to read for whatever reason, and like 6 hours later I get, actually, you know what, I took another look at it, and I added this thing here, and here's a newer draft. And like, that'll go on for like a week, and I'm just like, I've read the first 30 pages like twice now, and then so I feel like, take your time, get it in the shape you want it to be in before you start advertising you're ready to. And it's sort of the same thing with that resume story I told you, where it's like, instead of rushing into it, I think, and whether it's stuff if you're editing a reel or you're editing a scene you were in, I think it's the same thing, where it's like, take an extra day to like, most things take so long in this town anyway, that like, unless it's the one situation where you need it, someone's asking for it, I need it right now, like, take a few hours and like, make sure it's the right version, and make sure it's attached to the email when you send it. Because that's also a little a big no for me, is when I get the email the next day like, actually, wait, read this one instead. It's like, okay,